The John Lebang Show has been known to make people laugh, sing, think, scream, throw things in rage, and generally lose their minds. Listener discretion is advised.
Worldwide and out to the greater universe, you're listening to the John Lebang Show.
Well, Trump tells those Democrats to go stick it on impeachment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another John Lebang Show, the fastest hour in alternative media. Hope you're having a great morning here or day whenever you're tuned in to us. The drama continues over the impeachment, so-called impeachment, non-impeachment. We don't know what it actually is at this point, besides some kind of inquiry that they've just stamped impeachment at the beginning of it. Have you noticed the coverage in the mainstream media? It's impeachment inquiries. What that means is we're not really in an impeachment right now. They're just trying to find out information to see if they can, dig up something to impeach the president on, because over, 4 years now, including 1 year prior to him being elected, that's all we've got is this and that. We need to Trump this, and it's just nonstop. They keep saying Trump's the corrupt one, but here we have the Democrats, and this is a beautiful move because it's just awesome. Democrats are considering masking the identity of the whistleblower. Yeah, can't have their identity out. We might find out that they have something to do directly with the Democrats, maybe an operative. Apparently the second whistleblower, because now we have two, and they're a CIA agent as well. Gotta love them ABC agencies along with the Democrats and all the other big staters out there trying to find any reason, any possible means, motive, whatever they can find on Donald Trump. So the House Democrats are weighing extraordinary steps to secure testimony from the whistleblower whose secondhand complaint prompted an impeachment inquiry, which is not an impeachment, ladies and gentlemen. It is just an inquiry. In other words, it's a fishing expedition to see if they can dig up anything on the Donald, because up to this point, it's been 0 to none. The Mueller investigation turned up nothing of significance. The Russian collusion thing was not there. And the impeachment inquiry comes out just about the same time we're starting to hear about the Bidens and what went on in the Ukraine. See, it's all tied together, folks. We don't know all the information, but when you see everything kind of linking together and people just trying to top each other, something's going on there. A few of those Republicans, those linguini-spined Republicans, signaling that they may be faltering and may join in with the Democrats in this impeachment inquiry, which is not an official impeachment yet, folks. That's why Trump has been telling them to put it to a vote. They don't have the votes to actually start a real impeachment proceeding. It's really a TV show for the average human beings and, to consume. It gives the news media something to play on their boring stations, something to talk about. There is not news-worthy items they want to talk about. There are newsworthy items, but they don't seem to give a crap about those. It confuses me a little bit. We're going to get into some of that as the show progresses. I'm just riffing right now, to be honest with you folks. If we were to eliminate the impeachment inquiry, then we have the Syrian issue to deal with. Trump is pulling out about 100 troops. Not even pulling them out exactly. That's where the misinformation is coming into play. Because we're not pulling troops out of Syria. We have about 1,000 there, give or take. I don't have the actual numbers. I'm just going off reports. But these 100 that were keeping the peace between Turkey and the Kurds, I mean, only 100 troops were doing that? You know, I don't know if the reporting's so accurate on that. You know what I'm saying? 100 of our troops are not going to keep the Turkish military from crushing the Kurds if they really wanted to. And maybe, and this is what I'm having a problem with the neocons out there on this one, because they're upset that we're pulling 100 troops or so off this little border thing so that they don't get trapped into a conflict between the Turkish government and the Kurds. I know the Kurds are our allies, and I don't like backing out on our allies. But if a government is informing you that they're going to invade another country, by the way, I don't know why the United Nations doesn't slip into that role there and take that position to keep Turkey out of Syria. United Nations has, outside of speeches up at the big building there that was donated by the Rockefellers, outside of speeches there, what the hell does the United Nations do to preserve the peace anywhere on the planet? See, it shouldn't be the U.S. having 100 people patrol that border over there. If there's a reason to patrol the border to keep the Kurds safe from the Turkish people, the Turkish government, and Iran, then why isn't the United Nations there putting up their peacekeeping forces? It's been incredible to see that the United Nations, which was created for this particular purpose, to keep the peace between nations. I mean, they failed on the border there between the U.S. and Mexico with the refugee crisis, if they want to call it a refugee crisis. That's their other main charter, in my opinion. Keep the peace, take care of the refugees. But no, they rather have speeches over there. So a lot of neocons are upset. A lot of talk show hosts are upset. I heard even Michael Savage is upset. And I understand. Because you can't turn your back on your buddies because they're not going to be your buddies anymore. And when you need them, although I don't know how many of these, because we use these forces as proxies so we don't have to get involved. We let them kill each other. We just give them weapons and stuff. And sometimes weapons happen on both sides. And then they kill each other with the weapons, and then we don't have to send our troops in. That's a really good way to promote peace, by the way. But a lot of people are upset that we're withdrawing 100 troops from that part of Syria. If you go back, way back during the Obama administration, and I was saying we shouldn't be going to Syria. There's no reason to be there. Now everybody's in Syria. Then people are worried about the Russian influence in the air. They're the Syrian allies. Whether we like it or not, Russia and Syria have an alliance. And maybe they should be the ones protecting the Kurds if the UN doesn't want to do it. That's way over there, folks. And it was a Trump promise to get us out of things like this. Now, does it look bad on the face? Sure. We're not treating our allies very well. I've even heard some people say we need to bring them here. If we're going to take off, we should bring them all with more refugees in this country. This is what happens when you get caught into these foreign conflicts or you try to project your military might, going back to the military-industrial complex, and this might just be, because I don't know what's in Trump's head. Some people are diehard Trump fans. Some people hate him no matter what. He could do the greatest thing world peace-wise on the planet, and people would hate him. Same people who cheered when President Obama got that Nobel Peace Prize for doing absolutely nothing peaceful, and right after that, he decided to topple governments. So that's backwards as well. And you got Trump then, after announcing that we're pulling out, he then tells Turkey publicly, because I'm sure that phone call didn't happen, but can we get the transcripts of that phone call? Speaking of that, in the next segment, I want to talk about those transcripts, by the way. Because nobody wants to look into anything but Trump's transcripts. So what's your opinion? Should we stick with our allies and leave 100 troops, 100 mind you, in that part of Syria, or should we just get out of the way because Turkey told us that they're going to invade and we don't want our troops being killed? I mean, I don't know what the neocons want in this. Do they want us to escalate this by sending more troops there to deter Turkey and maybe get into a conflict with a NATO ally, which you're not really an ally, in my opinion? And that goes to a further point. If they do invade, we had those videos some years back during the Obama administration where somebody was getting oil from ISIS or giving oil from ISIS, and it was coming from Turkey. They were working together to move some oil. You forget those videos? Probably did. The news reports aren't going to tell you about that. The neocons aren't going to tell you about that. Well, the neocons might, because they want war. And apparently there's a prison with thousands of ISIS soldiers just put away. And they're worried what's going to happen to them. I'm not as peaceful as the diplomats of the world, I guess, because I would just say, you're all in ISIS? You all wanted to kill us, huh? Just blow that building up and move on. Leave them all in it, blow them up. Anybody who can survive that, yeah, you're probably good. And done with it. I know that sounds mean. I know that sounds terrible, but these are cold-blooded murderers that would do untold things to women, would drag people to the ocean and make them convert or kill them. They burned people alive. Yeah. I'm sorry. If we're worried about those ISIS people escaping because we're not having our 100 troops keep the peace out there, just blow that building up with them all in there and let go. That's a cheap way to get rid of it. But you know, we can't do that because that would be inhumane. Hey, Uncle Shady, where are they going?
Hey, you, get back here.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
Does your house need a paint job, but you don't want to do it? Then call Tom at Quality One Painting. He can handle all of your interior and exterior painting needs. He gives free estimates and senior discounts. Call Tom at Quality One. 313-982-2986. That's 313-982-2986. Quality One Painting. You're listening to the John Lebang Show.
It's better than an Irish convention.
As we continue on to the Turkey, Syria, Kurds story there of us withdrawing 100 troops out of an area. I have to keep reiterating that because we're not leaving Syria. But the Trumpster, just when you defend the guy, right? Just when you defend a guy, he puts out a tweet like this. And I don't report on tweets very often, but damn it, Trump, what the hell are you doing, man? There's people here. We're not your diehard fans, and we're not your diehard haters. We sit here and we're trying to judge you, bro. And we come to your aid when we see that you're being wrongly attacked, and we criticize you when you do something stupid. Well, this tweet was completely outrageous. He states in a tweet, as I've stated strongly before, and just to reiterate, if Turkey does anything that I, in my great and unmatched wisdom, consider to be off limits, I will totally destroy and obliterate the economy of Turkey. So, a NATO ally he just threatens, even though he gives them clear path into, because it could have been our 100 little soldiers there was enough to keep Turkey from invading. I don't think so. I think what Turkey said was, bro, we're going to invade, and if your guys are in the way, tough shit. Tough cookies. And Trump said, you know what, I don't want to risk our soldiers, so let's pull them out. That's a good move for our soldiers. May not be a good move for Turkey, or for the Kurds. Probably is a great move for Turkey. But why is Turkey going to invade inside Syria anyways? This is partially our fault why people cross our own borders, because we have made it a policy to cross borders. And that's every country now is like, well, we'll cross borders too when we want. When we want to do something that we don't like those people over there, we're going to cross the border and take them out. So why should anybody from Latin America or anywhere respect our borders when we, as a country, don't respect borders and have done it ourselves, just invaded countries, and now have given the precedence to any other country on the planet to do the very same thing? So with one of his campaign promises, he's pulling, I guess, it's not really keeping, because we should pull everybody out of Syria. Of course, the neocons and the people who like to warmonger will say that's a bad idea. We should be there. Do I have to remind you, you neocons, that it was Obama's idea to go there? You just liked it because it was something you like to do. You like toppling governments on the right just as much as the people on the left like to topple governments. Do it different ways, but they do it. Both sides do it. The neocons and the Republicans over there like a more direct military approach, while the Democrats are much more sneaky about it, and they undermine a government to the point it almost collapses. This going back to a theory of mine. I was crafting this theory the other day. Isn't it possible that little talk between Medvedev and Obama, the little off-camera thing, was the precursor, was just a little off-camera tidbit of a promise coming to Russia so that the U.S. could influence the Ukraine. So they decided to split that country appropriately. We, or the Obama administration and his allies, his little cohorts, wanted to get there and make a lot of money. Russia wanted a part of the country that used to be part of them, they claimed or whatever, so they got that back. Notice nobody tried to push that back. There's a lot of talk in the media, but the U.S. or the UN or NATO, nobody said, you know what, Russia, we're going to push you back. Crimea is the Ukraine's, not Russia's. No, they didn't do that, did they? All the political spinning that there is, it boils down to, in my humble opinion, that the Obama administration and the Putin administration made a deal on how to split the Ukraine. And there's no evidence that I've seen to suggest anything different. Nobody is claiming or calling for or pushing Russia into giving Crimea back. Any real push. And again, where's the United Nations in all this? The keepers of peace, world peace. The ones who are going to unite the nations of the world. United Nations, where are they? When the world needs them, they're doing speeches. It's all they're good for. Taking money, doing speeches. There's even been suggestions that they are part of the giant human trafficking ring. But I'm just some little guy who doesn't have the resources to fully investigate the United Nations. All I can do is gather reports that the mainstream media produces. And you know how accurate they are. You can't trust a single source these days. You really have to verify them with other sources, and then you don't know if they're colluding together. Because that damn Associated Press puts out the news. And all the various news agencies grab it and spin it and twist it the way they want. But it's all based off the same news, coming from the same sources, provided to you by a handful of media companies. A handful. Now to get back to the some of the Syrian thing, an official familiar with the Erdogan call said the Turkish president was ranting at Trump, saying the safe zone was not working and that Turkey couldn't trust the U.S. military to do what it was needed to do. And in reaction, Trump said the U.S. wanted no part of an invasion and would withdraw the troops. So you see that Turkey was going to do it anyways. You neocons, everybody complaining that we are abandoning the Kurds. I don't like it either. But do I want our troops getting killed in the process? Escalating the war over there? When you have to balance all this, Trump did the right thing for America. Unfortunately, it's not good for the Kurds. But isn't that what the United Nations is supposed to do, is protect that? Let them throw 10,000 troops on that border. Where are you, UN? Let's go. Trump made a promise to get us out of the endless wars. In fact, quoting him recently, he said, I held off the fight for almost 3 years, but it's time for us to get out of these ridiculous, endless wars. Many of them are tribal, and bring our soldiers home. How can you disagree with that, America? I know the Kurds are our allies, and it's going to be awful to see. But this is where Donald Trump, Vladimir Putin, all the leaders of the world need to start pressing the UN to get those peacekeeping troops in there. Or else, why is the U.S. supporting the UN in the first place? Why do we put in all this money towards the United Nations if they, in their infinite limpness, can't do a thing to prevent Turkey from invading Syria to kill the Kurds? I'm telling you. The problem is with bureaucracy and bureaucrats. Governments and leaders who are inept or want just power. I did a video 3, 4, 5, I don't know how many years back now, when the whole Syrian thing was happening and Saudi Arabia was thinking about making a 64, I forgot, was it a 64 nation coalition? They were doing like this exercise on the border there. It's incredible how nation states and their borders are no longer recognized. Happens on our southern border, happens in Syria, happens in every, except Russia. Nobody's encroaching on Russia's border, as far as I can tell. The world is just screwed up right now, folks. Everybody wants some kind of conflict. And in all this, the one who's been called Hitler, and that's Donald Trump, this guy wants to pull troops out. Not very Hitler-like, if you ask me, folks. Not very Hitler-like. Hitler would have, raised the ante a little bit, in my opinion. He wouldn't pull 100 troops. He'd probably put 10,000 troops on that border. Come on, Turkey. Maybe invade Turkey to prevent this. Yeah. It's a messed up world, folks. Messed up world. Let me finish off this and then we'll move to something else in the next segment. Among the first to leave were 30 U.S. troops from 2 outposts who would be in the immediate area of a Turkish invasion. It's unclear whether others among the roughly 1,000 U.S. forces in northeastern Syria would be moved, but officials said there's no plans for any to leave Syria entirely. So I don't know what Trump is doing either. He has some nice words saying he's trying to do what he promised to do, but all he's doing is moving, and you heard that. 30 U.S. troops out of 2 outposts, total of about 100 that are getting moved. And all this is happening because he's still doing his job during an impeachment inquiry into whether he compromised national security or abused his power by seeking negative information on former Vice President Joe Biden. And according to the mainstream manufactured malpractice media, it's because he's a political rival. And he's trying to get the Ukraine to take him out. Find dirt on him. That's what the Democrats are worried about. We'll be right back.
Don't move a muscle.
The John Lebang Show will be right back.
With lots of fun and excitement. Yes! Are you in need of commercial or residential window cleaning? Do you need your office cleaned? Maybe custodial work? How about some gutter cleaning? If you do, then call Pane in the Glass. For a beautiful shine that's crystal clear, call Pane and the Glass. You can find them on Facebook at Pane and the Glass.
Hey, man, it's at the bottom of the hour, man. Do you know where your kids are, man?
If you want to contact the John Lebang Show, feel free to send an email to jlebang@live.com. And if you're on Twitter, look them up at John Lebang. And don't forget to go to his Facebook page at The John Lebang Show. Banger. Now here's John.
I guess I'm not finished entirely with the Turkey-Russia-Syrian thing, because we just found some information that Russia Defense Ministry, back some years ago, released a video which stated that the country has sent up. Now this is when Russia was trying to help Syria clean out the militants, the terrorists in their country. They sent 63,000 servicemen to help battle those jihadists that were trying to overthrow President Bashar al-Assad, who requested the military assistance from Moscow. And this was back in 2015, September-ish. Now they sent 400 some generals, 25,000 officers, and a whole bunch of soldiers who have combat or had combat experience. They conducted 39,000 airstrikes in Syria and killed up to 86,000 militants with about 830 leaders or so. They also eliminated 121,000 terrorist targets. So we also have Russia that could prevent Turkey. They obviously have a little influence over Turkey, and they've worked with them. So Turkey doesn't need to invade, or shouldn't be able to invade, even if the U.S. forces pull out. You see what I'm saying? Now, about a month ago, not reported in the news, but President Vladimir Putin said on Russian TV that Russia and Turkey had agreed to steps to tackle militants in the northwest Syria and to normalize the situation there after the Syrian army offensive encircled rebel fighters and a Turkish military outpost. So maybe, see what's happening here? Putin was speaking after talks in Moscow with President Erdogan, who had said the Syrian army attacks in the Idlib region that borders Turkey have caused a humanitarian crisis and threatens Turkey's national security. Together with Turkey's president, this is Putin, we have outlined additional joint steps to neutralize the terrorists in that region, to normalize the situation there and the whole Syria, and as a whole of Syria. And Putin did this in a joint briefing with Erdogan. So you see, Trump is probably just getting our people out of the way because Turkey and Russia have made some kind of deal. And since Syria is a Russian ally and not a U.S. ally, it's the proper move. You don't want to get caught up in that. Do you really want U.S. troops being entangled in a Turkish military advance that will probably be repelled, maybe, by the Russians or are approved by the Russians? Because we don't know what kind of deal they actually made there. And I know we're supposed to be fast enemies of the Russians and we don't like them and everything, but that's their backyard. And we'd get mighty upset if they were toying around in our backyard. In fact, that's happened in the past. Cuban Missile Crisis. Does anybody remember that? Well, you see, when you toy around in people's backyards, that's a bad thing. And I think Trump, although not withdrawing troops from Syria, moving our troops out of the way is probably a good thing. And if the Kurds might want to get the hell out of there. Whatever region the Turkish government wants to take, I mean, unless you want to get slaughtered, Kurds, I'd probably get the frick out of there. Now let's touch other news because we don't want to keep making it sound like we like Trump, because the federal deficit estimated at $984 billion. Highest in 7 years. So, partially keeping with Trump's promises, even though he's not really keeping the promises to pull us out of those wars because he's only moving troops. He's also not keeping his promises on the deficit. And how can you keep a promise when you agree with the Democrats to sign an omnibus bill that blew the deficit out of the water? Is it any wonder the Republicans didn't want any part of this session of Congress? They would have been tied to all this debt. But they got the hell out of the way, even though they will contribute to this or have contributed to this. They'll get out of the way. We're out of office. No, it's not our fault. Those guys. So when you tally everything together, I don't even know why they're having an impeachment because I can't figure it out, by the way. They give you reasons, but Trump diehards will say Trump's done a whole lot, and he's done okay on a few things. He's not pulled us out of any wars because we're still toying around in all these countries that we've been in forever. All these countries. Deficit's still getting higher. Obamacare's still there. Any Democrats listening, please. I'd like to know what the hell you don't like about Trump. I just don't get it. You'd think that his opposition would feel like they've done pretty well at holding Trump's agenda back. They'd be cheering that on, but they're not. They're not. They're mad. They're mad. And they get madder and madder as investigations start to be turned on them. You see, they've set all this precedent where we probably are never, and I'm okay with that at this point, never going to get anything done in the country because the only things that ever get done are the bad things anyways. So if we're going to be in constant bickering mode up in the government, come to this, come to that, well, at least we can look forward to nothing horrible being passed until Trump's out of office. Because they're going to focus and waste all our money. They do that anyway, so since the American people don't stop them from doing it, what's the point, or what's the difference in where it doesn't matter where they waste the money at. Long as they waste the money, right? Long as they spend it, who cares? Can't sit on that money, can't give us real tax cuts. Can't do that. God forbid the American people get their money back so they can use their money to their own benefit. Nope, them dirty politicians got to take imagine that, ladies and gentlemen, $4 trillion the federal government takes in. That doesn't even count the state governments, the local governments, the counties, all that. Yeah. They take all that money and it just gets wasted. We'll talk about that a little later on. But I think I'll get into because as you know, anybody who's been watching, the alternative media is a subject of conversation here. I like to watch their reactions in all this. Because at one time I was a proud member of the alt media. Now I'm not so proud because most of them have gone off the deep end. Some of them speak some really good truths, and then they go and ruin it. There's a gentleman, Roy Potter, I think he was a colonel in one of the military branches. He's one of the few I still follow on YouTube, mainly because I can't deal with the insanity of some of the subject matter that they get into. Like, let's deal in reality. But they want to deal in Mandela effects and things they can't prove or disprove, and wouldn't know how to do it anyways because they don't have the scientific background nor the IQ to really figure that out. But here's Roy Potter. He's calling on Trump to invoke his Article 2 powers to combat the forces of insurrection. Because one could assess that there is an insurrection or a coup taking place inside the government. You're trying to get Trump, which I don't know, he's not going to listen to your voice. He doesn't listen to anybody. Sometimes you think he does, and then he just does what he wants, like the Syrian thing, coming out of nowhere. Makes that decision. Boom, let's just drop this. You know, I recognize that Trump is the only thing standing in the way of the communist kaiju taking over. But I also don't trust how he's portrayed in the mainstream media. It's too perfectly placed. When one thing runs its course, there's always another thing to follow it up. And it's all replete with scripted narratives and media coverage. Something else to focus on for the next several months, distracting the country with the never-ending wall-to-wall coverage that is only interrupted by the occasional mass shooting, military crisis, Hollywood scandal, weather event, or if we are truly lucky, just some LGBTQXYT rally that nobody really gives a crap about. We have problems in this country, and we focus on things that don't really matter. Impeach the president. We have a homeless problem in California. We have a border crisis, Texas, New Mexico, all those border states. We have aging infrastructure, as seen in cities like Flint and other areas around the nation. We have maybe the worst racial divide in the last 50 years. A failing healthcare system, which, by all intents and purposes, has been taken over by the government. You blame us for climate conditions, but you fly around the globe in your private jets, with entourages larger than some rural town populations. You want to take away our guns, but yes, you have armed bodyguards, police forces, Secret Service agents protecting you round the clock. You take 1/3 of our lives in taxes. That's off the top. That doesn't count all the other taxes involved. And yet, never have enough money to spend. You always want more. You don't represent the people. You think you'll rule the people. Power. That's all those people up there ever really wanted. Because they were good for nothing else in their life. They contributed nothing. So they went for power. And when you get a little bit of that power, you want a little bit more. We'll talk about the alt media in the next segment.
Smoke them if you got them.
Because the John Lebang Show will be right back.
After this.
That's guaranteed. Yes.
At Absolute Skin and Body Care, they only use the best laser equipment in the industry so that you receive the best results possible. They'll explain all the procedures in detail and answer all of your questions. Absolute Skin and Body Care. If you're looking for skin rejuvenation, laser lipo, or laser hair removal, call Absolute Skin and Body Care. They're located at 37625 Ann Arbor Road, Suite 105 in Livonia, Michigan. Absolute Skin and Body Care. Their office phone numbers are 248-305-3000. That's 248
305 3000. Absolute Skin and Body Care. You're listening to the John Lebang Show. It's huge. Now I got to tweet about it. So I touched on it last segment, but I swerved away from it a little unexpectedly. But I wanted to talk about the alternative media a little bit. I brought up Roy Potter's. He had a video recently. As I alluded to earlier, Roy had brought up that Trump should invoke his Article 2 powers and that people like him would come to his aid. He had to get a clear signal from the Donald that, and him and his band of brothers, patriots as they call themselves, would come to the president's aid to protect him during this insurrection, this coup. And there's no doubt, I agree wholeheartedly that there is some kind of power struggle now going on inside the government between Donald Trump and the people who are opposed to everything he is doing. And I don't think Trump can really trust very many people inside the cabinets, inside the bureaucracy of the government. But I don't know if what Roy Potter is suggesting is the best idea. Because invoking that Article 2, calling up people to come to the aid of the president, would sure look like something that would happen in 1930s Germany to the average person, because they don't understand those kind of inside baseball constitutional things going on. And a lot of people would get really scared over that sort of thing. And we're to the point, my friends in the alternative media, because I don't have many of you I follow anymore, but the ones I do, including Roy Potter, who himself, unfortunately, is participating in the divide of the country. This is exactly, and you've made the comments, Roy, this is exactly what they want. They want more division in the country, yet you are participating in it. We don't need to continue to send this country into civil war, because the further we divide the country, the more likely that is going to happen. And for a person who's really not a right-winger and definitely not a left-winger, and I know there are a lot of us out there, we don't want to get involved in your political struggle. We just want a good country. And unlike all the politicians on the left that are pushing for the divide, and then the alt-right wingers and the right wingers that are either falling for it or just saying, what the hell, let's get this over with. Because there's a lot that feel that way. Let's just get it over with. Split the country, have the Civil War or the Revolution or whatever, deal with the consequences, and move on. There's a lot of us, like myself, who don't like either scenario. And we just want to root out the corruption, whether it be on the left wing or the right wing. Just root it all out. Get rid of it. I think there's a lot of people, luckily, he's on that lower tier, like myself, and he gets more listeners than I do, or at least on the YouTubes. I don't know if he does a radio show. I haven't paid attention to that. I don't think so. So we'd have to combine all my listeners and see. But he gets, 5,000 people, 3,000 people, 6,000 people per video. So people listen. And I hope he's not influencing people. And I understand, Roy, because you're going to get mad if you hear this. I completely agree with you that there's a coup going on inside the government. I just don't think splitting the country up in half, just cutting and then fighting it out, is the right answer. But I don't like conflict. I'd rather talk about, because this is getting on my nerves, having to talk about the politics of the country and war and all the news that is manufactured for us to discuss, to distract us. I'd rather talk about my favorite sandwich or something. It was, about a week ago, I had a turkey Reuben from this place, pizza place, not too far from here. Good stuff. I tell you, I got some fries with it. I was really happy about that. But you know what? Nobody wants to hear about my sandwich experience. They'd rather discuss one side or the other. And that's another problem. Why are there only two sides to any political situation? And why are the people who consider themselves not part of the two sides completely ignored? If you're not a fanatic, you don't matter. Have you guys noticed that? If you are not a fanatic, you don't matter. Like the audio I played for you last week, where AOC allowed crazy lady who wanted to eat babies to continue to speak and nobody shut her down. I'm wondering if anybody is investigating crazy lady who wants to eat babies to see if she hasn't already eaten a couple babies. God forbid if she ever got pregnant. We touched on, since we're getting close to the end of the show here, we did touch on earlier at the beginning of the show, just barely, and I probably should have gotten a little deeper into that. But this whole thing where the whistleblowers' identities are going to be protected, why has this come up? When has it been a thing that we hide people who are accusing people of things? It seems kind of shady to me that the Democrats are trying to hide these whistleblowers' identities from the rest of the world. Do they not want us to know how closely tied they are to the Democrats? Is that it? Or is it just more political theater, which is very apparent we might be doing some political theater, Please, we're not going to tell you the whistleblower, and then Trump just goes, okay, well then you're not going to get any cooperation. I think that's fair. All the money that is being absorbed here, and of course all the valuable time to solve problems is being wasted because we have the TV political theater game going on. They should make like a game show out of it and score points every time. CNN and all that would play the point counter, just like ESPN at night, This is CNN political scoreboard tonight. Donald Trump got 3 points early on, but then the Democrats came back with a major blast to his offensive capabilities because they're not going to release the whistleblower's face, name, or identity to the American people, further complicating the situation for the Donald. Score now 4-2 in Donald's favor. We'll take you back live to Adam Schiff and the rest of the dirty scumbags. The game show. It's all that way, though. Even on the alternative media. We can't, as I stated earlier, and I've stated so many times, it's becoming redundant. We should talk about other things, but we can't. I should be able to have a little fun on this show, but we can't. I mean, we could, but then I wouldn't be doing my listeners a service, my opinion. But really, I was thinking about this earlier because I don't have the greatest following, and I don't expect to be knocking down the doors the way, let's say, Rush Limbaugh has listeners or anything. At this point, that's not like a goal. It might have been early on. Oh, I'm going to be one of the greatest radio guys ever. But, you start realizing it's a tough business, just like the damn music business. I always take the tough roads. But no matter how many listeners I have, no matter how many people follow me, I realize that I'm doing this primarily as a way to archive my viewpoint, my perspective of what's happening in the world. And of me. All you're getting is a audio and sometimes video diary of John's perspective, John's mood, John's life. Where he stands, how he sees things. And it doesn't matter who's listening, per se, or how many people's listening. It's an audio diary that I'm willing to share with the world. You don't have to subpoena these documents. That's out in the open. It's how I feel. It's how I see things. Some of you agree. Some of you don't. Some of you send me hate mail. Rarely do I get nice, kind words. And the more truth I throw out there, the more hate I get back. And that's a good barometer for me. So when there's a lot of people out there trying to increase their numbers, and I'm telling you, I'm doing okay. Just like to announce while we're on the subject that we had the best month of 2019 since January, right back in September. We had an amazing month. And I attribute that to us coming back to the radio and people actually listening. See, since I've done that, since I've migrated people to the website, it's given me a better barometer, to use that word a second time, to forecast out my year. Now to get into weather terms. Ooh, we're doing weather terms. And when I see all that, and I know people are listening, so it's great. But it doesn't matter how many people are listening, because as I've reflected on these past several years, unwittingly, I created an audio diary of the world's events from my perspective. 348 episodes later, 348 hours. It's amazing when you think about it. Not including all the videos I've done prior to that and all the other things that have related to it. So when I think about that, I'm like, well, people can go back. If they don't know some of the recent history or the history of the past several years, all they have to do is go to my archives. And then you can take that and balance it with what knowledge is available. And with that being said, folks, we're at the end of another hour. I'd like to thank all of you for tuning in, all of the affiliate stations that carry the John Lebang Show. If you've missed any portion of this broadcast or want to check out those archives I just mentioned, feel free to go to the website, www.jlebang.com. And until the vibrations of my vocal cords reach your ears again, I'm John Lebang, thanking you, and we'll see you next time. Signing off for now from the Banger Studios.
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have liftoff.